What is keeping your mind awake tonight? Even though your body is tired, what is it that follows you into the night, when everything else finally becomes quiet? Because the night has a way of revealing things you don't notice during the day. When you're busy, when you're distracted, when you're moving, but when everything slows down, your thoughts don't always follow. They become louder, more present, beyond more persistent. And what you've been holding begins to feel heavier, not because it changed, but because now you can finally feel it. And maybe tonight, that's exactly where you are. Trying to rest, but your mind won't let you. Trying to slow down, but something inside keeps moving. Going over things again, replaying, questioning, carrying. Bum. And the silence around you only makes it louder. But there is something important you need to understand. What feels heavier at night is not always because it became bigger. It's because your soul is finally asking to be heard. The night removes distractions. And in that stillness, what is unresolved comes to the surface. Not to overwhelm you, but to reveal what you've been carrying. And sometimes, what you need most is not to fix it, but to bring it to the right place. The Bible speaks directly to moments like this. In Psalm 4:8 it says, "In peace I will lie down and sleep." Not because everything is resolved, not because everything is clear, but because of something deeper. For you alone, Lord, make me dwell in safety. That means rest is not built on perfect circumstances. It is built on where you place your trust. And tonight, you don't need to carry everything into your rest. You don't need to solve everything before you close your eyes. You don't need to understand everything before you breathe. You can pause, right here, right now. Take a slow breath, in and out. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are just carrying more than you should have for too long. And maybe this moment is where you begin to release it. There is something about the night that changes everything, not outside, but inside. During the day, you are surrounded by noise, responsibilities, movement, distractions, and all of that keeps your mind occupied. It gives you something to focus on, something to do, something to respond to. But when night comes, all of that fades, and the noise quiets, the movement slows, the distractions disappear, and suddenly, there is space, and in that space, your thoughts have nowhere to hide. What you avoided returns. What you postponed resurfaces. What you didn't process becomes present, not because the night is against you, but because the night removes what was covering it. And what's left is what has been inside you all along. That's why it feels heavier, not new, just uncovered. There is also something deeper happening spiritually. The Bible shows that the night is often a moment of encounter, a moment of exposure, a moment of truth. In Genesis 32, Jacob wrestled through the night, not with a situation, but with something internal, with identity, with fear, with what he had been carrying for years. And it was in the night, when everything else was quiet, that he could no longer avoid it. And that moment changed him, because what surfaces in the night is not random. It's often what needs to be faced. But here is where many people misunderstand this. They think the weight means something is wrong. They think the heaviness means they are failing. But that's not always true. Sometimes, the heaviness is a signal, not of failure, but of awareness. Your soul is no longer ignoring what it has been carrying, and that awareness is the beginning of change. There is also another layer. At night, your defenses are lower. You are tired. Your mind is less guarded, and what you usually keep contained becomes harder to hold. And that can feel overwhelming. But it can also be an opportunity, because what you can feel, you can begin to release. And what you can recognize, you can bring to God. That's why Psalm 63 says, "On my bed I remember you. I think of you through the watches of the night." Not because everything was resolved, but because in the night, there was space to reconnect. And maybe tonight is not just about what you're feeling. Maybe it's also about where you can bring it, not to your thoughts, not to your fears, but to God. Because the same night that reveals the weight can also become the place where you begin to release it. Maybe what feels heavy tonight is not just one thing. It rarely is, most of the time. It's a combination of things you've been carrying for longer than you realize. And because they didn't come all at once, you didn't notice how much it added up. Until now. Until the night became quiet enough for you to feel it. Sometimes, what's weighing on your soul is something unresolved. A conversation that never happened. Words that were never said. Questions that were never answered. And your mind keeps returning to it, trying to close something that still feels open. But the more you revisit it, the heavier it becomes. Other times, what you're carrying is not a situation, but a feeling, a quiet sadness you never fully expressed, a disappointment you never fully processed, a kind of tiredness that doesn't go away with sleep. And because you kept going, you never stopped to release it. Or, there is also the weight of expectation. Not just what others expect from you, but what you expect from yourself. The pressure to do more, to be better, to not fall behind. And even when no one is watching, you still feel it. That internal pressure can be one of the heaviest things to carry, because it never fully turns off. Another weight many people carry at night is fear. Not always loud, not always clear, but present. Fear of what might happen. Fear of what might not happen. Fear of losing something, or not becoming what you hope to be. And in the quiet of the night, those fears have more space to speak. There is also something deeper, spiritual fatigue. When you feel distant, disconnected, like you're still moving, but not anchored. And that creates a quiet emptiness, beats, a feeling that something is missing, even if you can't explain it. But here is something important. You don't need to label everything perfectly. You don't need to understand every detail. You just need to recognize what feels heavy. Not logically, but honestly. What drains you when you think about it? What tightens your chest? What keeps returning even when you try to ignore it? That is your signal. Turn. Not something to fix immediately, but something to bring into the light. Because what you recognize, you can begin to release, and what you bring before God, You no longer carry alone. There is something many people don't realize. You don't always carry things because you want to. You carry them because something inside you feels like you have to. Even when you're tired. Even when it's heavy. Oaks. Even when a part of you is asking for rest. And this is where the struggle begins. Because you're not just tired from what you're carrying. You're tired from not being able to put it down. One reason this happens is responsibility. Not just healthy responsibility, but excessive responsibility. You feel like it's your job to fix things, to understand everything, to hold things together, even things that are not fully in your control. And that sense of responsibility keeps your hands full, even when they need to rest. Another reason is attachment. Some things you carry are connected to meaning, to identity, to who you thought you were going to be, or how things were supposed to happen. So, letting go feels like losing something, not just the situation, but the meaning behind it. And that makes it hard. There is also something more subtle. Control. When you hold something, even if it's heavy, you feel like you're doing something. Like you're managing it. Like you're staying ahead of it. But letting go feels like stepping into uncertainty. What happens if I stop holding this? What if things fall apart? What if I regret it? So you keep holding, not because it helps, but because it feels safer than not knowing. There is also unfinished emotion. Things you didn't fully process, moments you didn't fully understand, and your mind keeps returning, trying to resolve what feels incomplete. But that loop keeps you carrying it. Even when the moment has already passed. And there is one more reason that is deeply spiritual. Sometimes, you carry things because you haven't surrendered them. Not because you don't believe, but because you're used to holding everything yourself. And surrender feels unfamiliar. It feels like losing control. But in reality, it's the only way to truly rest. The Bible says in Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all who are weary, and I will give you rest." Notice this. It doesn't say fix everything first. It doesn't say understand everything first. It says, come as you are, carrying what you're carrying, feeling what you're feeling. And that means you don't have to solve it to release it. You just have to bring it to the right place. Right now, in the middle of this night, you don't need to fix everything. You don't need to understand everything. You don't need to solve what your mind keeps returning to. Because the kind of rest your soul is asking for does not come from resolution. It comes from release. And that release doesn't begin with effort. It begins with permission. Permission to stop holding everything, even if just for this moment. So instead of trying to quiet your thoughts, start by slowing your body, your breathing, your posture, because your body and your mind are connected. Take a slow breath, in and out. Again, slowly. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw relax. Let your body release tension. You don't have to force calm. You allow it. Now, instead of pushing thoughts away, acknowledge them. Without fighting, without building on them. Just notice. This is what I've been carrying. And then, gently shift your focus, not to the problem, but to God. Not with perfect words, not with a structured prayer, but with honesty. Simple, real. God, this feels heavy. I don't know what to do with this. I'm tired. That moment creates connection, and connection creates rest. Just because you are no longer holding it alone. There is something powerful about releasing things to God at night, because the night is already quiet, already still, already open, and in that stillness, your soul can hear what it couldn't hear during the day. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Not fix everything, not figure everything out, but be still. Nish. And in that stillness, there is knowing, not intellectual knowing, but a quiet assurance, a deep awareness. You are not alone in this. And that awareness softens the weight. You don't have to carry every thought to the end. You don't have to solve every feeling tonight. You don't have to close every open loop. You can simply rest in the middle of the unknown. And that is real rest. When you begin to rest in God, the change doesn't come all at once. It doesn't arrive with a sudden feeling that everything is fixed. Most of the time, it begins quietly, almost unnoticed. But something shifts. And one of the first things that changes is your inner pressure, that constant tension, that feeling of needing to hold everything together begins to loosen. Not completely, all but enough to create space. And in that space, your mind begins to slow. The same thoughts may still come, but they don't stay with the same intensity. They don't control your entire state. You begin to observe them instead of being carried by them. That shift changes everything. There is also an emotional change. What once felt overwhelming becomes lighter. Not because it disappeared, but because you are no longer holding it alone. You've placed it somewhere else, and that reduces the weight. There is also a deeper transformation. Your need to control begins to soften. You don't feel the same urgency to fix everything. You don't feel the same pressure to understand everything immediately. And that shift creates peace, because control is exhausting. But trust creates rest. Another change begins to appear. Clarity, not perfect answers, not complete understanding, but enough to take the next step, enough to feel a sense of direction, enough to move forward without being overwhelmed. And that clarity brings calm. There is also a growing sense of presence. You are less trapped in what already happened, less consumed by what might happen, more connected to what is happening now. Even small moments start to feel different, slower, lighter, more real. And in that presence, there is peace. Over time, these small shifts begin to build something stable. Not a perfect life, but a grounded soul, less overwhelmed, less internally heavy, more steady, more at rest. And maybe you won't even notice the exact moment it started. But one night, you will realize you're no longer carrying everything the way you used to, and your soul finally feels safe enough to rest. Even after a moment of peace, your thoughts can return, sometimes quietly, sometimes all at once. And when they do, it can feel like everything is starting again, like the weight is coming back, like you lost what you just felt. But here's something you need to understand. The return of a thought is not the loss of your peace. It's just a moment. movement, not a failure, not a setback, just something passing through your mind. The difference now is how you respond. Before, you followed every thought. You engaged with it. You tried to solve it. You let it grow. And that made it heavier. But now, you can do something different. When a thought returns, pause. Don't chase it. Don't fight it. Just notice it. This thought is here. And then, let it pass. Like a wave, coming and going. You don't need to carry it forward. You don't need to build on it. You don't need to solve it right now. This alone breaks the cycle. There is also something deeper you can do. 2. Bring your attention back to God. Not with effort, not with pressure, but with simplicity. A short, quiet thought. God, I give this to you. Or even just, stay with me. That is enough. Because your peace is not maintained by controlling your thoughts. It is sustained by where you place your trust. There is also a physical side to this. When your thoughts return, your body often follows. Your breathing changes. Your chest tightens. Your muscles tense. So instead of trying to control your mind, return to your breath. Slow it down. In and out. Again and again. This signals your body that you are safe. And when your body feels safe, your mind begins to quiet. Not instantly, but gradually. There is something important to remember. Peace is not the absence of thoughts. It is the ability to not be carried by them. And tonight, you don't need to control everything in your mind. You just need to not hold on to it. Let it come. Let it pass. And gently return, again and again, to stillness. Calm doesn't always arrive in a clear moment. It doesn't always feel like peace all at once. Most of the time, it comes quietly, in small shifts, subtle changes that you almost overlook. But if you pay attention, there are signs that something inside you is already softening. One of the first signs is this: your thoughts begin to slow down, not disappear, but lose urgency. What once felt intense now feels a little more distant, a little less consuming, and in that space, you can breathe, even if just a little deeper. Another sign: your body starts to relax, on without you forcing it. Your shoulders drop, your breathing softens, your chest feels less tight, and that physical shift is not random. It reflects what's happening inside. There is also an emotional change. What felt overwhelming no longer feels as intense. You still feel it, but it doesn't take over. It passes more naturally, more gently, and that matters. Another quiet sign: you stop trying to solve everything at once. The urgency fades, the pressure decreases. You feel more willing to let things unfold. And that shift creates peace, because pressure creates tension, but surrender creates rest. There is also a deeper awareness. You begin to feel less alone, even in silence, even in the dark. There is a quiet sense that you are not carrying everything by yourself anymore. And that feeling is not just emotional, it is spiritual. Psalm 121 says, "He who watches over you will not slumber." Meaning, even while you're trying to rest, you are not unguarded, you are not unseen, you are not alone. And that awareness brings a quiet kind of peace that over time, these small changes begin to build something deeper. Not excitement, not intensity, but stability. A calm that doesn't need to prove itself. A rest that doesn't depend on everything being resolved. And maybe you won't notice the exact moment it happens, but slowly your soul begins to settle, and in that stillness, you find something you've been needing: peace. Tonight, you don't have to prove anything. Not your strength, not your understanding, not your ability to hold everything together. This moment is not asking anything from you. It is simply inviting you to be still. The day is behind you. What was done was done. What was unfinished can wait. Nothing that matters will be lost because you chose to rest. There is a quiet truth about the night. While you slow down, God does not. While your mind searches for answers, He remains steady. While you feel uncertain, He is not. Psalm 121 reminds us, "He who watches over you will not slumber." That means you are not unguarded when you rest. You are not exposed in the silence. You are not alone in the dark. There is a covering you don't have to create, a steadiness you don't have to maintain, a presence you don't have to earn. And because of that, you can allow your body to soften, your breathing to slow, your thoughts to become quieter, not forced, not controlled, just gently settling. Even if your mind is not completely silent, peace can still be present. Even if some questions remain unanswered, rest is still possible. One, because peace is not built on certainty. It is built on presence. And tonight, you are held within that presence. Nothing more is required from you. Nothing more needs to be done. You are allowed to rest, gently, quietly, fully.